Hey guys, how you doing? It's James here with another video. Today we are doing a book tag. We're going to be calm. We're going to be calm about it. It's not anything to freak out about, except it is actually, because it's the mid-year book freakout tag by Anonymous. Because unfortunately, no one bothered to credit the creator of the tag this year. So I don't know who invented it. Sorry to you. And shame on you, Booktube community, for not naming the person who created the tag in videos or in your description, and also for not listing the questions in your description. I had to click through about 3 million different videos before I found one that had the questions in the description. So yeah, I've done it, the tag. I wasn't tagged by anyone as far as I'm aware. So that's what we're doing today. Book tag. So, question 1. This is from the Big Black Book of Book Tags, by the way. That's a trademark plots and points creation. No one else has a book that is black and for book tags. Right, best book you've read in 2018 so far. Well, that can only be one, because obviously you can only have one, the best. It's not a participation trophy thing. And that is Dune by Frank Herbert. This is the first book I read all the way in 2018. I say that because the first book I technically read was Eye of the World, but I started that last year. So yes, Dune by Frank Herbert. It's about a man named Paul Atreides, who is sent to live on the desert planet Dune with his family, known as the Atreides Bunch, and they are betrayed by their enemy, which I guess you can't really be betrayed by an enemy, they just were attacked by their enemy, which is the Harkonnen family, and they had their house destroyed and stuff, and then Paul becomes like a demigod to some desert people, and there's sandworms and stuff. It's pretty good. Probably one of the all-time best sci-fi novels. So no surprise really that objectively this is the best book that I read this year. I've done all reviews. I've done reviews, the full reviews for all books that I've read in 2018, by the way. So if you want to hear more about Dune, go and watch that. Number 2, the best sequel you've read so far in 2018. Well, that would be Hangman by Daniel Cole. Not just Daniel Cole, though. Author of international bestseller and approver of fake stickers on his book covers, Daniel Cole. Hangman is the sequel to Ragdoll, which was a book that I read last year. It's about a detective for the English police named Emily Baxter, as she goes on adventure to solve the crimes, not involving hanging people, actually, surprisingly. It's more about who is the puppet master. It all gets very you know, out of hand, but again, full review of that, just go watch that if you want to know what it's all about. They're all spoiler free, the reviews. This is badly organised, this tag. Number 3, a new release that you haven't read yet, but you do want to. That is City of Brass by S.A. Chakraborty. I don't know too much about what this one is like, because obviously I've not read it yet. So there's no review of this one. So contrary to what I said before, this one, there isn't a review. So if you want to know more about this, you need to look it up, really. But it says, the best adult fantasy I've read since The Name of the Wind. It's stunning and complex and consuming and fantastic. You must read it. That Sabah Tahir said that. And she wrote An Ember in the Ashes. So obviously her opinion is the best one. Also, someone called Ozma Jahanat Khan. Fucking hell, I butchered that. said it's a richly imagined, stunningly immersive book. You will race to the end of this bold and brilliant debut. That is the award-winning author of The Blood Print, which I've never heard of. But, yeah, it all sounds pretty good, doesn't it? So that's The City of Brass. Loads of people that aren't me have done a review of it. Probably could find out from there. Fucking hell. What am I even talking about anymore? Right, number 4. Most anticipated release for the second half of the year. This is the one that I feel like everyone should be anticipating, but no one is, as far as I know. And that is Noumenon Infinity, which is the sequel to Noumenon by Marina J. Lostetter. Noumenon is about in like 2010 or something. It's like 2010 or 2008, sometime close enough to modern day. Basically, yeah, I think it's 20. No, it's not even. What am I even talking about? It's 2088, and it says it right on the fucking back. I'm an idiot. Right, so in 2088, mankind discover this object out in space, like deep, deep space, beyond our galaxy. And they're like, oh, well, let's go explore it. Let's go find out what it is. So this guy invents this idea of sending like 13 ships out to space to figure out what this thing is. And in order to get there with Earth's best and brightest, what he does is loads up these ships and decides, well, how about if we just clone people every so often on the way when they're getting old, and we'll have like their predecessors train them up to be as smart as they are, because that's how intelligence works, right? So that all happens. So they go off into space and they clone each other on the way to make sure that the right people get there to examine this object in space. And what happens is, obviously, once you get further and further away from Earth, and it's been hundreds of years since you've contacted Earth or seen Earth or anything, no one is alive that remembers really Earth or the mission or anything. So it develops into this whole little microcosm of a new culture. Like shipboard life becomes its own entity altogether, separate from Earth society. And then, obviously, when they return to Earth, what could have changed? What could happen? So that's what happens in Noumenon. And the sequel, obviously, is going to pick up, presumably, where that left off. And we might learn things about this space object that we didn't learn too much about in the original. So there you go, Noumenon Infinity. I've done a review of Noumenon last year, so go and watch that as well, because I don't think a lot of people did, actually, and that offends my intellect. It doesn't bother me. Don't watch it if you don't want to. Biggest disappointment of the year, Meddling Kids by Edgar Cantero. I don't have it to hold up because I've lent it out to a friend, and they've said it's really disappointing as well. And I did tell her that it was. I did warn her. I'm not evil. Basically, Meddling Kids is Scooby-Doo mixed with Call of Cthulhu, which sounds like a fucking genius idea. And it is a genius idea, and some of it is done all right, but mostly it's just written so badly. The idea is butchered. It's all about the execution, really, not the concept. And Edgar Cantero fucked it up. He fucked it. You fucked it, Edgar. I'm sorry. Bad book. Don't bother reading it. Biggest surprise of the year, The Poppy War by R.F. Kuang, for completely different reasons than Meddling Kids, actually. So this one got super hyped just before its release, a little bit. I think it's getting more hyped now, actually, on Booktube at least. But this was pretty hyped before it came out, and I was like, oh yeah, man, that sounds great. I'll read that. I got halfway through, and I was like, oh no, is this going to be like the biggest disappointment of the year? Because I wasn't enjoying it for the first half. And then the second half happened and just completely switched all of that. And I was like, oh shit, this is actually amazing. And I now understand why the first half was the way it was. So that was a surprise, and therefore this is the biggest surprise of the year for me. Number 7. Yeah, 7, I can count. Favourite debut or new to you author? And that would be Stuart Turton, who wrote The 7 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle. This was an amazing book that came completely out of nowhere for me. I heard about it on Bookie Laura's channel, and then I was like, okay, yeah, that sounds interesting. Went out to the Waterstones, bought it, read it, and I was like, oh my god, this was amazing. Really confusing at the start. Then it got really clear later on, and I was like, oh yeah, I'm really into this. So basically what it's about is a guy called Aidan Bishop is gone to this place. He's gone to like an old English manor house kind of thing. You know the deal. If you've seen an Agatha Christie film or whatever, you know the deal. So he's gone to this place, and then he has to solve a murder most foul, which is the murder of Evelyn Hardcastle. The twist is that every time Evelyn dies, the clock is reset to the start of the day, and Aidan wakes up in a different body. So he keeps his memories, but now he's in a different body, and he gets to solve the murder from a different perspective. So he has to sort of go through gathering clues, sometimes not figuring anything out, getting to the end of the day, and then starting again. But now he has to like build up his case from like 7 different POVs, which is fascinating. 7 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle, really intriguing book. Recommend you check it out, and check out my review, of course. I'll say that every time, naturally. Newest fictional crush is question 8. I don't have one. I don't do fictional crushes, really. So that's that. I don't do fictional crushes. They're words, mate. It's not a big deal. Right, book. Newest favourite character. I do have one for this. Racelyn Margera from the Dragonlance Chronicles, or more specifically just the first one, Dragons of Autumn Twilight, which I've just finished reading. This is my big floppy bind-up of all 3 of the Dragonlance books, the original trilogy. So Racelyn Margera is like an evil wizard, but he's like a hero in the book. He's like your anti-hero in the group, basically. He has gold skin and hourglass-shaped eyes, but that makes him sound really stupid. But actually, it's not, because what's happened to him is that he's made some sort of heinous sacrifice for great magical power, and as a result, he's like fucking jaundiced and hacking cough all the time, where he just coughs up blood constantly, and he's like got a raspy voice, and he's frail and needs to sleep all the time, and his hourglass eyes are not like a cool thing that you would get in like Naruto or something stupid like that. It's actually a curse that was put on him by another wizard due to his arrogance. And it means that he sees things like in a state of decay at all times. Like he sees how time will impact the things he's looking at. So he can't see anything beautiful anymore. Everything he looks at, including people, are just basically rotting corpses to him, which is fucking horrible. But yeah, he's a really interesting character. Like, he's got a lot of depth to him. I would say he has more depth to him than pretty much everyone else in Dragonlance, who are mostly just generic D&D characters, because that's how it started life. So let's move on to the next question. Book that made you cry. I don't really cry ever, but especially not when reading books. The book that gave me the most feels, though, was Last Night in Montreal by Emily St. John Mandel. It didn't make me cry, but it did make me feel sad, because it's a sad book. Again, review of that. There's always a review of books that I've read this year. So go watch it, whatever. If you want to know, I also did a whole video about how it made me feelsy. So you can watch that if you want to know more about how it almost made me cry, but didn't. Because I'm hard, I'm a tough bloke. Book that made you happy. Season of Storms by Andrzej Sapkowski. I don't have that to hold up either because, again, I've lent it out to a friend. And this time I was like, mate, it's really good. You'll like it because he liked all the other Witcher books. So, yeah, it's the next book in the Witcher series, I guess. It's mid-quel, sort of taking place halfway through a short story collection. Which is The Last Wish, not a true sequel to the series, really, but it is the next entry. But anyway, yeah, it's really good. It's basically just a novel-length adventure of Geralt having the worst week of his life, and it just was funny and adventurous and basically everything I wanted from a new book in the Witcher saga, so I can't complain about that. Favourite book to film adaptation? I've not seen too many of this year that I know of, because you never can tell with films. Most of them are just based on books and you don't know about it. It's only really recently that people have been hyping up films that are books, like, for example, Rambo, that's a book. Die Hard, yeah, that's a book. Most films that you've seen probably are books that you just didn't know about. So, favourite book to film adaptation this year, Annihilation by Jeff Vandermeer. Again, pretend sticker on the front. New major film directed by Alex Garland. I really like the film. I haven't actually read the book yet. But I can tell you it's my favourite book to film adaptation, just because the film itself was just of such high quality. Alex Garland is one of my favourite directors. Haven't watched a film of his that I haven't enjoyed. Like, he has a really good visual style, and yeah, I mean, he just tells a really good intellectual sci-fi that makes you think, which is what you want from a sci-fi book. Favourite review you've written or video you've made this year? The pirate ship tag, I suppose, was probably one of my favourite book videos that I made, and also I'm quite fond of all the discussion videos that I made about reviewing and the point of reviews and things like that, and they got quite a good feedback, so I'm glad you guys like those as well. The most beautiful book you've bought this year so far? And that is it's gonna have to be Seven Surrenders by Ada Palmer, because I bought this book, and obviously it's the second book in a series, so I had to buy the first book as well, which is called Too Like the Lightning. I had to buy this because look at that, the artwork on it is just, it's just great. It's fantastic artwork. So I saw that and I was like, yeah, I want to fucking read that. It looks really good. I don't really know too much about what it's about because I've not read the first one, but it is definitely pretty. These edges are like embossed, so those are cool. The text is all embossed. That's nice. Yeah, this is probably the most beautiful looking book that I've read so far this year, and I think it's the only book I've ever read that actually has trigger warnings in the front, like this little bit of text here at the bottom. It's in-universe fictional content rating, but it is actually like an actual trigger warning, so that's an interesting addition. Right, so that I've got no more books to hold up now. What books do you need to read by the end of the year is the final question, question 15, and I'm just going to read the list because I've got a load. These are all the books on my Goodreads TBR that I actually own. There are some books on there that I don't own yet because either they're not out or I just haven't bought them. But these are books that are on my TBR and that I do own and therefore should probably read at some point soon. So, After On, a novel of the Silicon Valley by Rob Reed. Kings of the Wild by Nicholas Eames. The Lies of Locke Lamora by Scott Lynch. Annihilation by Jeff Vandermeer, Story of Your Life and Other Short Stories by Ted Chiang, City of Brass by S.A. Chakraborty, Grace of Kings by Ken Liu, Soul of the World by David Mealing, Two Like the Lightning and Seven Surrenders by Ada Palmer, I'll Be Gone in the Dark by Michelle McNamara, A Natural History of Dragons by Marie Brennan, and The Traitor's Blade by Sebastian de Castell. And that is it! A 20-minute book tag video, all done and dusted. I'm not going to tag anyone because I guess just anyone can do it, so I guess I'll tag everyone in the whole Booktube world. If you're watching this, consider yourself tagged, and I will see you next time. Goodbye.